This is Ben from Positivity Lab, and I'm glad to have Sarah Jane Meeson from Christian Women in Business with us today. And it's such a pleasure to watch women, especially Christian women, in positions where they can influence other women in terms of business and inspiring them to build a business that's Christ-centered and that's making a difference in the community. Thank you for being on here today, Sarah.
Yeah, no worries. Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure.
And before we start, could you briefly introduce yourself for our listeners?
Yeah, sure. So my name's Sarah Jane Meeson, or also known as SJ, and I'm the founder of Christian Women in Business and the Automation Girl. So I live in Australia, but I'm originally from the UK. I've been in Australia for about 10 years now. Married, no kids, no fur babies, just hubby and I. And on the weekends, we love mountain biking and skiing, go to the beach.
Wow. I guess in a sense, you do live quite an active lifestyle. Does someone compliments the things that you're doing as well in terms of, I guess, you're more adventurous and ready to push the boundaries in a sense. Can I say that?
Oh, completely. Yeah, always.
Yeah.
Don't live
So,
life safe, live
mm.
life dangerously.
So, would you mind sharing a little bit more about Christian women in business and what inspired you to start that?
Yeah, sure. So I was doing like stuff with the Automation Girl, but it was called something different back then. And I also was doing a little bit of mentoring on the side, just for women. And I was a Christian back then.
Right.
But I wasn't really advertising God or Christianity kind of in my business. And I was still studying my Bible in the background and doing all that stuff. But on the business front, I wasn't kind of portraying that. And hubby and I are also into a little bit of investing as well on the side. And so I would want to go and talk to people in church about it. People didn't quite get what it was that we were kind of doing, or what our vision was for our lives and for our family. And so I decided to form like a little women's group where I just got a few of my friends who I knew were interested in that kind of thing, and we'd get together and read the Bible, and it was awesome. And then I kind of pulled away from that, but I was really at a crossroads of, should I be adding God into my business? And so we found the first Christian business seminar I'd ever heard of. I was like, this is amazing. And so we went to it, and I kind of went to it kind of asking God, like, God, I'm at a fork in the road. Do I add you to the front foot of my business and change things around and just dedicate it to you? And so I came away from that conference and I was like, yes, I need to do that. And so within doing that, I changed my marketing. So on Instagram, images and quotes and things, I started referencing the Bible and what the Bible teaches us about business. And I went on this whole massive, like, 2-year Bible study on what does God say about business and money, because I was just like, surely God has something to say about something so big that makes the world go around. And so I did. And from that, on Instagram, I had a lady message me called Megan. And she was like, oh my gosh, another Christian woman in business. Like, we need to connect. Let's chat on Skype. And so we connected. And it was like we were just long lost friends or long lost sisters that just, and we didn't realize, but we're actually part of another group online, and we didn't realize, and we didn't know that we were both Christians either, which was really cool. So that was really special. And we just started chatting and meeting once a month, helping each other be accountable and that kind of stuff. And we just thought, wouldn't it be so cool if we could create a platform where other women could come and do what we were doing, talking about God, talking about business, sharing faith, encouraging one another. And so Megan was like, yes, it would be really cool, wouldn't it? And she kept kind of prodding me about maybe we should set up something and create a place where we can talk about awkward conversations that you can't necessarily have out in the public spectrum, with a few political things that are coming up now.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so I sat on it, and I prayed over it, and then I went to see if Christian Women in Business was free, the domain, one day out of curiosity, because I was at the point where I was like, I don't know if I want to take this on, God. Like, this is going to be big. Like, I'm going to have to commit. And so yeah, I looked at the domain. It was free. I was like, okay, well, I might buy it. So I bought it. And then I went and told Megan, I was like, okay, so Christian Women in Business was free and I bought it. She was like, and are you going to say yes? I'm like, yes, let's do this. And she was like, okay, no worries. I'm going to help you with the branding. She's a graphic designer. So all of our beautiful branding is all by Megan. She's really helped me kind of set the theme, and she's like the back person that just is amazing in the background of CWIB. And then, yeah, and so we put the word out there about what we were thinking about doing. People absolutely loved it. People contacting us from all different places in the world, like finally a place where we can all come together and just unite. And so, yeah, there was a gap in the market essentially between God, church and business. And we wanted to create a way for women who have a passion for business and a love for God to unite together, so we can encourage each other and just tap into that strengthening that God can give us when we put his word and business together. And here we are.
Wow. That is actually an amazing story. And just before we go into the next question, you actually mentioned, there's a little quote here that you mentioned that you spent 2 years studying the Bible on business. I would like to pick your brain with that statement. So how did you move forward with this Bible study on business, and what was your biggest takeaway from that?
Oh gosh. So I basically started with Abraham, and just went through like his story about how he was a pioneer. He was a fighter. He was madly in love with God, and God, from his obedience and righteousness and faith in God, he just had this incredible life, that from his, I guess, favor from God, like he had such an amazing story. So I kind of picked out, okay, well, what are the characteristics of Abraham? And that was really cool. So they were be righteous, so be faithful in God, be obedient, and just follow his instructions. And then I moved on to like, okay, well, let's have a look at the book of Proverbs, because that's full of wisdom and knowledge, and it just is a really great foundation for running a business. And basically it was the same theme, and be righteous with God. Actually, I'm going to go and get my book that's full of my notes, because I had some stats on this. After going through the whole of Proverbs, I went through a score of importance. So I was a little bit geeky, and I was like, okay, so, you know, like how many times is money mentioned and all this stuff, and how does God kind of give us some kind of rating, if you like.
Right.
So score of importance is, so righteousness was came up at 15, so that was the most mentioned, and that's just having, not being a goody two shoes righteousness, but just having that love, that passion, and that faith in God. And then 10 times was mentioned was gained wisdom. So always be seeking wisdom in your business and knowledge, and how is it that I can improve myself to help improve others. Be generous came in 9 times, so making sure that we're being generous with everything that God has given us. That doesn't necessarily mean cash or money. It can be lots of different things. So your skills, staff time, time with people. There's lots of different ways to be generous. Number 8 was have integrity and storing up your knowledge. Number 6, grow your wealth slowly. So I heard a really good kind of quote the other day by Jim Rohn that said, why would I give you a company if you don't know where all your money goes? So, there's that saying, oh, I don't know where all my money went, or,
Mm-hmm.
give me $1 million. And then God's like, but if you don't know where all your money went, why would I trust you with $1 million? So by growing our wealth slowly, we can learn about how to handle our money, budget, forecasts, and all of that, and making sure we know where it's going and that we're multiplying it. Number 4 was God gives blessings. Be disciplined, look after your business, it will look after you, work hard, don't hang around fools. Number 3, don't forget your teachings. So we need to practice what we've learned. You'll have a long life, you won't be lazy. Careful what comes out of your mouth, gain respect over wealth, guard your wealth and be prudent. 2 times, get advisors, don't brag, commit your plans to God. God has a plan worked out for you. Don't ignore the poor, give to the rich, meaning don't give all your money to Kmart every week and making them richer. How can you bless others? I like to add that in there because I know as women we do like to make big companies richer with the produce that we buy. Number 1, what was mentioned once was don't overcharge, be discerning, confess your sins, don't be worn out by getting rich, give God your first fruits. God teaches us how to get out of trouble. And then another number 1 was go out and sell. Don't pretend to be somebody. Don't store up money. Grey hair is a good thing. I got that out of Proverbs. I'm like, yeah, because I started growing grey at like 25. This is good.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that verse.
I'm like,
That's really surprising. Yeah, it's one of those verses that really caught me off guard as well. It's like you just don't expect that sort of thing to appear in the Bible, which talks about gray hair, and I'm just there. I'm like, what in the world is going on here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Really cool. So yeah, I don't know if there is one big takeaway. Like, there's just so many things. And then I kind of moved on from, okay, so we've got Proverbs, but then Jesus came. So, what did Jesus teach us about money? Now we're in the new covenant, like we're blessed, so we can bless. It's a little bit of a different mind shift from Old Testament to New Testament. We still need to be really wise with what we do with our money. We still need to be generous, but now we are blessed to be a blessing to someone else. It's not that we have to work for it, or grace is free. It's a gift from God. We're in that grace now. So how do we, best utilize this grace that God's given us in our business to be a blessing to others?
Right.
That's it.
Wow, that's quite a lot to chew. In
It
fact,
is. Sorry, that was all at once.
No worries. Actually, that actually really set us on a really good foot. And in fact, if we had the time, I would love to just do a whole interview based on that. But I guess we're pressed for time, and I would like to move on to other things. But wow, that's just something that really, really, I feel that whoever is listening to this right now would actually be very intrigued by your quote unquote geek out, which I think it's not really more of a geek out, but it's actually way much more than that. And I feel that you're underplaying it by calling it a geek out, which it's a massive blessing, I would say.
That's cool. Well, I'm glad I could bless you.
Thank you so much for that. Moving on to the next question. What was the toughest or lowest part in your career as the founder of CWIB, and how do you bounce back from that?
Well, actually, it's probably a season that I've just had, and that's listening to some of the wisdom in Proverbs, and that's don't burn yourself out by running a business. So at the minute, I'm throwing a few balls up in the air, just like many women and men out of there. And so I've had to learn how important my own boundaries are. And it's been a really, really great lesson. And I'm feeling very refreshed now I'm on the other side of it. And I'm sure there's lots
Mm-hmm.
of other business owners, maybe you're listening to this podcast today, where you've been at a point of burnout. And that's, it's different to depression, but it shows kind of the same symptoms as depression. So you don't want to get out of bed. You're feeling very tired and lethargic. You're irritated. You feel sad. You've lost your passion. And so I was at that point a couple of weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
And actually it was a couple of weeks ago. I was like, okay, I actually need to turn some things around here, and how I'm going to go moving forward if I want to keep moving forward. So technology is a great thing, but it is the one thing that pushes everyone's boundaries. So instant messenger on Facebook, Instagram, I was just letting people message me all the time, constantly on the phone. It was taken away from my family time. It was consuming me. And we had some other stuff going on in the side. So I'm not just running CWIB. I'm still working a job because we're investing, and the banks want to have you to have a steady income if they'll lend to you in Australia. So, and then we had some things happen with one of our investment properties. So we were renovating on weekends, still running CWIB. I was still running the Automation Girl. And so we just had a lot of things going on. And then with people contacting me all the time, it got very overbearing. So I just reached that point. Amazing things were happening in CWIB. We were going through a 6-week Bible study challenge. I was doing some amazing interviews, just like this podcast show, where it was a really great opportunity to share what we were doing in CWIB. So God was still blessing us in the midst of me going, oh my gosh, I'm at burnout already. I need to take a step back and reevaluate how I do things so I can go for the long term. And so I've just put some really basic but very freeing things in place to help kind of release that burnout. So I basically just told people that you're not allowed to message me on Messenger anymore. It was really blunt, it was really upfront, but by messaging me, you're taking me away from my family, and that's not okay. So I put boundaries around Messenger. I put boundaries on myself around social media. I just kind of keep telling myself to be the creator and not the consumer. So if I'm working, what am I working on creating for my business? Not what am I consuming from others? And that's been an awesome mindset change around. And then just managing my calendar and being more light on myself. So not cramming things all in at once, learning to say no. And I've used the word no so many times this month, it's not even funny, and it's so amazing and freeing. So always going back to my vision, mission and values. If it doesn't line up with it, then it's okay to say no. And the vision, mission and values has come from God. That's what he's told me to do. If I do anything more than that, then I'm going out of that place of grace. So it's okay for me to say no, to stay in that place of grace. So yeah, coming out of a season of burnout, having time to rest, saying no, setting specific boundaries, and also I've taken on in CWIB like an admin stroke customer service girl. So that's been really freeing as well, because she's able to take care of customer inquiries, and some of the back end stuff, which is big in a business. So that's really freeing as well.
Wow, that's good to hear. That's good to hear that you're actually getting out of a burnout. And I honestly was not expecting that answer. that actually took me by surprise as well. So wow, thank you for being so honest in this interview as well.
That's okay. There's no point in putting on a face.
Yeah, which I guess that's a lot of things that we don't see that's coming from other Christian leaders as well, that the church expects them to put on a face, and that's quite a shame, because they're still humans as well, and they do go through the same struggles that we do as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
All right, let's move on to the next question. So, if a woman or a man who would like to take a leap of faith and start their own personal business, what would your advice to these people be?
Um, so my biggest advice would be to start setting your time with God now. So we're a big advocate in CWIB to have at least one big set of God time a week.
Mm-hmm.
It might be at the beginning of the week. So we love to say, spend your first hour, your first working hour with God. Or if you can't do that, the women also call it interrupted God time.
Mm-hmm.
So set in some interrupted God time, because mums don't get uninterrupted, they get interrupted God time.
Yep.
And it's basically about you sitting down with God
Mm-hmm.
and putting everything on the table. So you might start out with some worship music, you then start getting into the word. Just like I gave the example of going through the Bible, learning all about money and business. So it might be that you just pick a subject and you start learning about it. And then through time, you'll find that after spending that 1 hour or even just 15 minutes, the 15 minutes will turn into an hour. The hour will turn into 2 hours. And God will bless you from having that time with Him. He will ultimately bless you. I have an example that earlier on this year, I was really blessed to go to the Colour Conference.
Mm-hmm.
A girlfriend couldn't go, and she was like, I want to give you my ticket. I was like, that would be awesome. And so I dedicated that week, took it out of my business. I was just like, God, this is just you and me. Like, let's do this. And so I just dedicated that week and just really rested and prayed and took on the conference. And halfway through the conference, I got a phone call. And I was like, I'm not expecting anyone to call me this week, because I'd made sure everyone knew that I was not contactable. And I listened to the voice message, and it was a woman from a TV show inviting me to come on and talk about CWIB across
Wow.
international TV. I was like, what? I had to listen to it twice. I'm like, hey. And I called her back. I'm like, did you call me? I was just completely blown away that by that time, with that
Wow.
time of resting and just having that time with God, He just blessed us out of the blue. So, and it's happened so many times just from me dedicating that time with God. He'll give you your vision, mission, and values. He'll tell you what it is you need to do. He'll tell you how it is you need to lay things out. Your marketing, it's just about spending that time with Him, being
Mm-hmm.
quiet, getting into His Word, being in that prayer time, journaling. And if you can establish that when you first start your business,
Mm-hmm.
you'll be able to then take that through with you, and you'll have that solid foundation of Jesus and of structure, your vision, mission, values, the reasons why you're doing it. So everything else can just come from that.
Wow. That's really amazing. I just recently attended a workplace conference as well, and all of them echoed the same thing that you have mentioned. That is to pray all the time and to dedicate your business time to God,
Mm.
especially when it comes to big business decisions.
Yeah, it's like the most simple, easiest, free thing you can do, and people overlook it.
Yeah, and that, I guess that's the biggest takeaway as well for me in the conference, that through God, everything is possible. And but are we willing to just take our time to spend time with Him and to come into His presence and just enjoy Him for who He is?
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
The next question, let's move towards people, or other women who are already in business. So, what's the biggest struggle that you see women or men face when they're trying to start a business, and how would you advise them?
Well, I can't say that I'm an expert on men, but I can say I'm getting to know women very
Mm-hmm.
well.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say the biggest thing that they probably struggle with is trusting themselves. Um, and there's so many elements of trust. So there's
Mm-hmm.
trust in yourself to make good decisions. There's trust in yourself that you're going to make mistakes. There's trust in yourself that you are good at the craft that you want to do, or you have a skill set to run a business, even if you're not doing the actual doing of it, that you've got it in you to find the people
Mm-hmm.
that can do the doing part. And I think that trust and trusting yourself with what you're doing and building it. I mean, you've got to know that businesses take time. Despite what all the marketing rubbish is out there, business takes time. And you've got to give yourself time to change. You've got to give yourself time to adapt, to learn, to gain wisdom, to manage money well. So by trusting yourself to take that time and spending that time with God, like we said before, being gentle with yourself, trusting in yourself in the process, and knowing who you are in God, and knowing that no matter what happens, God's got you. Like, I've made really stupid mistakes, ridiculously stupid. And every time I just have to come back and say, God, I'm so glad you've got me in my stupidity because I need you right now. And he's always there. So we just have to let go of that control, and just trust in ourselves that the product that we're putting together will sell. We've done our research. We're trusting in that research. And we're just going to put in the time and consistency to do that.
From a man's perspective as well, I think a lot of things that you have shared, they're actually very applicable to both sides of the party. And it's just something that I see as well in terms of men. Sometimes they do feel that they're inadequate to start a business, and they don't know how to manage that, and they're just impatient. They're lacking self-motivation, self-trust as well. I guess it's just a general thing that everyone can actually learn from it as well. So
Yeah.
thank you for sharing that. Yeah, for the next question, let's come back to the part where you mentioned about rest. There are so many people in the world that they have mentioned about the hustle and the grind. And it's always like entrepreneurs, you need to stay up till late. Entrepreneurs work late, and then they don't sleep a lot. It's always about just working and working and working. What what are your thoughts on that? And is it important for entrepreneurs to rest?
Oh gosh, yes. I'm not going to swear, but I think all of that is absolutely bull poo. Can I say that?
Yeah, sure.
I think, yes, of course you have to work hard. There's a story in the Bibles of reaping and sowing, and I know it's probably been overused,
Mm-hmm.
but sowing and reaping applies to every single aspect of your life. It can't just be business. So yes, you need to work hard. Sometimes you do need to put in the hours. And if you want to sustain a good business that's going to last for more than 6 months, you need to learn how to utilize what you've got and be really, really resourceful. So what do I mean by that? It means okay, for me, I love podcasting, and we
Mm-hmm.
have a podcast show as well, but I hate the back end of it. So I
Mm-hmm.
hate editing, putting it on the website, writing up the transcripts, all that
Mm-hmm.
kind of stuff. So the first thing that I invested in was a team member to help me do that. And
Mm-hmm.
so by doing that, I was resourceful. I found out where what could fit in my budget for what we had.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the first thing that I kind of outsourced properly, apart from the graphic designing that Megan was doing. And so that initially freed up 3 hours a day.
Wow.
Or 3 hours a week, should I say. And so that's 3 hours where I can sleep, if you get what I'm saying. That's 3 hours where I can go to the gym. That's 3 hours that I value my time, that I'm going to be resourceful with my time and with what resources I've got, and empower someone else to do that. And so as you grow and as you begin to slowly make, or you might quickly make more profit,
Mm-hmm.
like I've just been looking at, okay, if I'm going to do this, I need to give out some more things to other people. So then I found volunteers to help me do Instagram and to help me with Facebook. And then as our budget grew, those volunteers turned into me paying them. And now, like I mentioned a couple of months ago, I was like, okay, it's time for me to now employ someone to help me do customer service. And so as we've been expanding and as the profit margins, not
Mm-hmm.
profit margin, but as the profit's been going up, I've been going, okay, well, what's the next thing that I can make good use for out of this resource that's going to give me my time back? And so slowly and gently along the way, I've just been gradually outsourcing things. And then that's enabled me to manage the workload that I manage and sleep at night.
Mm-hmm.
And by what I said before, by sitting down
Mm-hmm.
with God, working out your vision, mission, and values,
Mm-hmm.
spending that time with Him, working out what it is that He's actually asked you to do, knowing where your place of grace is within that, you shouldn't have to be doing like an 18-hour day. And if you want to put yourself into a grave early, which God tells us not to do,
Mm-hmm.
then doing the big hustle, having the sleepless nights is how you go about it. But that is not how God has taught us to run businesses. And I don't believe that that is being in the grace of God by any means. Yes, you work hard, you gain your knowledge, but you do it at a pace that is manageable for any human being.
Thanks for sharing that as well. And I would like to know that you mentioned a lot of times being resourceful in your business. And one of my biggest questions is that how do you know if you're resourceful with what God has given to you? So let's talk about the parable of the talents, right?
Yeah.
God mentioned that we need to be resourceful with the talents we're given with. How do you know that the decisions that you make are based on what God deems resourceful?
Okay, so the parable of the talents, from my perspective, is
Mhm.
if God gives you $5 and you
Mhm.
can make $20 out of it, you're
Mhm.
doing good.
Mhm.
How you get that $20 depends on you, and so you searching the wisdom. So if I need to turn that money, that $10, how do I do that? How do I create $20 out of it? So I might have a product that I sell and market. I might not be great at marketing.
Mhm.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to spend $5
Mhm.
and I'm going to buy the product that I want to sell.
Mhm.
Then I'm going to use the other $5 to pay for someone to market it and sell it for me. And then we're
Mhm.
going to make $20 out of that. You've sold it for
Mhm.
20. Great. I've got my 20 back. I can then put I can put $10 in my pocket. I can give it to
Mhm.
someone else. I
Mhm.
can use it to expand the business. So I
Mhm.
still use the same $10 as before. I spend $5 buying another product to sell again. I spend the other $5 giving it to the person to market it for me. And then, okay, I've got this other $10, so I might then bring in someone else to help me, or I might buy another product, or I might just get really great at selling that one product, but spend more money on my marketing for it. So I'm giving my marketing person a bigger budget to spend. And then, I might have sold 2 of those. And it just goes on and on. So
Mhm.
learning to resource what God has given you, in my opinion, is about doing just that. It's about sitting down and working out, okay, it might be that I buy a house in a rising market. I put my $10 deposit down. I wait a year. I come back and my $10 it's turned into 100,000. Like, I mean, if you're in Sydney in a rising market, that can happen. So you're resourcing that money and you're putting that money to use. How is it that I can find a block of land that I can do a subdivision on? It's going to cost me 50,000 to put that subdivision into council, and then I'm going to need a deposit. So God's given me that 50,000. I've put it into resources. I've built another house out of it, and I've gained 200,000. Like, that is, to me, is how you resource what God has given you. And we live in a world of consumerism where people think, okay, if I get this money, I need to go out and spend it straight away on stuff that's not meaningful. I know that there's the simplistic movements happening all around the world now. I have to advocate that my husband and I are very simplist. We don't ask for much. We don't live in a big spangly house just yet. We don't have that much stuff, but we love the Lord and we love what we're doing. And we love that the little bits that we're doing to help building the kingdom. And by sowing and putting that time into all these different things and into our marriage, like, for us, that's kind of the parable of the talents in other ways as well. So using it resourcefully means we can spend that time together. And multiplying it means we are making a living out of what God's given us, and it is supporting us in what we're doing. It supports our life, and it allows us to be generous to other people as well. I can't actually remember your original question. I've really gone off one.
No, that really answered my question. That really did.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. Which I really like how you've actually talked a lot about resources in terms of like being simplistic and just doing and just using whatever God has blessed you and to use it and to put it back into ways that you can generate even more so that you can actually make a living out of it and it supports you. And coming back to what you've actually mentioned previously as well, that you've talked that we are blessed to be a blessing to others, and we can use that blessing that we have to bless others as well. Yeah, which
it's a beautiful gift from God, and it's the main reason why Jesus came down on the cross, that he was persecuted for our sins, but after the resurrection, like, we now get to live in that beautiful grace. And that is a gift, and God's given us that gift so we can share it with others, and it comes in lots of different ways. And that's why we have Christians in business. That's why we have Christians in sports. And he's placed us all over the world in all different communities to be that blessing to other people.
That's a really good quote. It's a beautiful gift to be a blessing to other people. Yeah.
Hashtag.
Yeah. Wow.
Take it on Twitter.
That's a really good way to end the whole interview. Ending it on such a high note, to remind that we all are stewards of what God has given us, and all the blessings that we have is actually a gift for us to bless other people, regardless of where we are in terms of business, in our workplace, or even investing as well. We are just called to be a blessing to others as well. And that's such a great takeaway from this interview. On that high note, Sarah, would you like to add anything else?
Anyone who's listening, I just want to tell you that you are doing a great job. Even if you're having the worst day ever, if you do good on your worst days, then you are still doing a great job. So keep going, keep plodding along, keep staying in God's grace. Remember, life's not a sprint, it's a marathon. Love on your family, love on the Lord, and God will look after your business.
Wow, that's a great way to end the podcast. And thank you so much for your time, Sarah. It's been a pleasure to have you on. It's been a pleasure to hear you share all these things as well. We would love to speak with you more in the future. And thank you for your
Yeah,
time.
sure.